I want to begin tonight with a question, not a rhetorical one, a genuine one. A question I have been asked in every city I have visited, by every kind of person imaginable, from every walk of life. The question is this: why does it take so long? You imagined, you felt the wish fulfilled. You went to sleep in the state of the answered prayer, just as I instructed. You woke the next morning and looked around, and nothing had changed. The same room, the same circumstances, the same evidence of the very thing you were trying to move beyond. And so the doubt crept in, as it always does, whispering that perhaps the law doesn't work, that perhaps it works for others but not for you, that perhaps you are the exception to a principle that has no exceptions. I want to address that doubt tonight, not by encouraging you, not by telling you to believe harder, but by giving you something far more useful than encouragement. I am going to give you understanding, because I have found in all my years of teaching this, that doubt does not survive understanding. You do not doubt that a seed needs time to germinate. You do not plant a seed on Monday and dig it up on Tuesday, furious that it has not yet become a tree. You understand the nature of the process, and that understanding gives you the patience to let the law work. What I want to give you tonight is the same kind of understanding, but applied to consciousness, applied to the interval between assumption and manifestation, applied to the specific, precise, utterly reliable cycle that governs how a change in your inner world becomes a change in your outer one. That cycle is 72 hours, 3 days. The same 3 days that appear at the turning points of every great scripture, every profound teaching, every account of genuine transformation. This is not coincidence. It is the fingerprint of the law. Stay with me tonight. By the time we are done, you will never again look at the silence following a true assumption and call it failure. You will recognize it for what it is: the law in motion, moving beneath the surface, doing precisely what it was designed to do. Let me be precise about something before we go further, because imprecision here has caused more failure in manifestation than almost anything else I can identify. These 72 hours do not begin when you first desire something. They do not begin when you first affirm something, or write it in a journal, or tell a friend what you intend to create. They do not begin with the wish. They begin with the acceptance. There is a world of difference between these two things, and most people spend their entire lives on the wrong side of that difference. Wishing is the posture of someone who does not yet have. Accepting is the posture of someone who already does. And the law, which is a mirror, not a judge, reflects back with perfect faithfulness whatever posture you occupy. The moment of true acceptance is unmistakable when it occurs. It is not a thought. It is not a decision. It is a shift in the felt sense of reality, a moment when the desired state stops feeling like something you are reaching toward and starts feeling like something you are standing in. The body relaxes slightly, the urgency dissolves. There is a quality of settledness, of course, that is entirely distinct from hope or affirmation. That moment, that precise moment of genuine inner acceptance, is when the clock begins. And from that moment, the law operates whether you are conscious of it or not, whether you continue to think about your desire or forget it entirely, whether the next hour brings confirming evidence or apparent contradiction. The germination has begun. The forces have been set in motion, and they will complete their cycle in approximately 72 hours. Not because I am assigning them a deadline, but because this is the natural gestation period of a shift in consciousness. Now, why 72 hours? Why 3 days? I want you to notice something. In Scripture, when the writers wish to describe a complete transformation, not a partial one, not a beginning, but a full passage from one state of being to another, they invariably use the language of 3 days. Jonah in the belly of the whale, 3 days. The rebuilding of the temple, 3 days. And most famously, most profoundly, the death and resurrection of Christ, 3 days in the tomb. I have said many times, and I will say it again tonight, that these accounts are not primarily historical. They are psychological. They are maps of consciousness, precise, accurate, field-tested maps, drawn by men who understood the inner world with a depth that the modern mind has barely begun to recover. 3 days in the tomb is not a story about a body, it is a story about the movement of consciousness through the complete cycle of transformation, from the death of an old assumption, through the darkness of gestation, to the resurrection of a new and living reality. And the fact that this pattern appears again and again across cultures, across centuries, across traditions that had no contact with one another. This is not mythology. This is observation. These writers were recording what they saw happen in themselves and in those around them when a genuine change in consciousness took place. The law is ancient. The 72 hours is not a modern discovery. It is a rediscovery of what every true teacher has always known. Let me now take you through what actually happens during each of the 3 days, because this knowledge is not merely interesting. It is practically indispensable. When you understand what each phase feels like from the inside, you will never again mistake the normal discomfort of transformation for evidence that the law has failed you. The first 24 hours begin the moment true acceptance occurs, and their character is this: nothing visible happens, and everything invisible begins. I want you to hold that paradox, because it is the whole of what I am about to describe. On the surface, in the world of appearances, in the outer circumstances you can observe and measure, these first hours offer you nothing, no confirmation, no sign, no leaning of the world in your direction. The people around you behave as they always have. The situation that you have accepted as transformed still looks, from the outside, exactly as it did before. And this is precisely as it should be. Because the outer world is not the origin of change, it is the record of change. It shows you what has already been established in consciousness, not what is currently being established. The outer world is always reporting on the past. What you planted yesterday, the day before, the week before, that is what today's circumstances are reflecting back to you. The new assumption has not yet had time to become the past. It is still the present, the living, immediate present of your inner world, gestating in the depths of consciousness, with a power and intelligence that the surface mind cannot observe and must therefore trust. Think of the woman who has just conceived. In the first hours, the first days, there is no outer evidence of what has occurred within her. Her body looks unchanged. The world does not yet know. And yet, from the very first moment of conception, a reorganization of extraordinary complexity has begun. Every biological system quietly, invisibly reordering itself around the new life that has been initiated. Your consciousness in these first 24 hours is doing precisely the same thing. The old mental patterns, the habitual ways of perceiving yourself and your world that have governed your experience for years, perhaps for decades, those patterns begin in these first hours to loosen their grip, not dissolve, not disappear, loosen. There is an underground restructuring, a reorientation of the subconscious landscape around the new seed you have planted. You will not feel this. Or rather, you may feel a quiet, almost unnameable sense that something has shifted, without being able to point to what. Trust that feeling. It is the most honest report your inner world can give you in these earliest hours. Your only task in the first 24 hours is simple, and it is the same task throughout all 72. Not with force, not with effort, not by suppressing the doubts that will naturally arise in a mind conditioned by years of outer world evidence. Simply return again and again to the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Let it be the home you keep coming back to, no matter how many times the surface mind wanders. The seed has been planted, the soil has received it, leave it alone and let it work. I must speak to you very carefully about the second day, because it is here that more people abandon their assumptions than at any other point in the cycle. And the reason they abandon them is that the second day feels, from the inside, like failure. I call this day the crucifixion, and I mean that word with complete precision. The second 24 hours is the period in which the old identity, the old concept of self, the old pattern of thought and belief that has governed your experience until now, must die. Not weaken, not step aside, die. And dying, as you might imagine, is not comfortable. It does not feel like progress. It does not feel like transformation. It feels like loss, like confusion, like a ground that was solid suddenly becoming uncertain beneath your feet. Here is what you will likely experience on the second day. The rational mind, having received no outer confirmation of your new assumption, will make its argument, and it will make it well, because it has years of evidence on its side. It will say, look around you. Nothing has changed. You assumed, you believed, you felt, and here you still are, in the same circumstances with the same people, facing the same situation. And it will not be wrong about the facts. The facts will not have changed. What the rational mind cannot know is that the facts are irrelevant to what is happening in consciousness. But this is not the deepest discomfort of the second day. The deeper discomfort is this: the old sense of self, the familiar, habitual, perhaps comfortable identity that has defined you until now, begins to feel unstable. You are no longer fully the old person, because the assumptions has begun its work. But you are not yet fully the new one, because the transformation is not yet complete. You are in the formless middle, which the scripture describes as the tomb. Not the old, not yet the new, held in darkness between death and resurrection. Every transformation in nature moves through precisely this formlessness. The caterpillar, inside its chrysalis, does not gradually become a butterfly. It dissolves, completely, radically, into an undifferentiated cellular liquid. It is neither caterpillar nor butterfly. It is formless potential. And from that formlessness, the new form emerges, not as a modified version of what came before, but as something genuinely, completely new. Your consciousness on the second day is the chrysalis. The disorientation you feel is not a sign that something has gone wrong. It is the sign that the dissolution is occurring, that the old form is giving way as it must to make room for the new. I want you to receive this truth so deeply that the second day never frightens you again. The discomfort is the evidence. The very fact that the old state feels unstable, that the familiar patterns of thought feel loose and uncertain, that you cannot quite settle back into who you were before. This is not failure. This is the law working. The old man is dying. That is the entire point. What do you do on the second day? The same thing you did on the first, but with greater steadiness, because the temptation to abandon the assumption is greatest here. You return to the feeling of the wish fulfilled. You hold it not with strain, but with the quiet conviction of one who understands that darkness in the chrysalis is not the absence of life. It is the condition of transformation. Do not dig the seed up on the second day. Do not conclude that nothing is growing. Understand where you are in the cycle. This is the crucifixion. The resurrection is one day away. The third day is the resurrection, and its character is unlike anything that came before it. If you have held your assumption faithfully through the invisible gestation of the first day and the formless discomfort of the second, something occurs in the third 24 hours that cannot be manufactured, cannot be forced, and cannot be mistaken for anything other than what it is. The assumption stops feeling like something you are holding. It begins feeling like something you simply are. This is the shift that changes everything. The wish fulfilled no longer occupies your mind as a desired future state. It occupies your consciousness as a present reality. New identity is no longer a role you are trying to inhabit. It is the self from which you are naturally, effortlessly operating. The old state, if you try to return to it, feels slightly foreign, like clothes you have outgrown and set aside. This is resurrection, not metaphor, not approximation. The precise psychological event that the scripture is describing under that name. A complete transformation of identity. From the person who did not have to the person who does. From the person who was trying to believe to the person for whom belief is no longer even the right word, because belief implies the possibility of doubt, and the resurrected state has moved beyond that. Now, and I must warn you about this, because it catches almost everyone off guard, the outer world often makes its most dramatic contradiction just before the third day breaks. I call this the moment of greatest apparent failure. The circumstance that most directly opposes your desire seems to intensify. The person whose behavior you most want to change behaves most badly. The door you most want to open appears most firmly closed. This is not the law failing. This is the final expression of the old pattern, the last gasp of an assumption that is in the process of being overwritten. The outer world has its own momentum. It has been faithfully reflecting your old consciousness for years, and in these final hours it is making one last report on what was, not on what is now. Do not be deceived by it. The darkest hour precedes the dawn, not because darkness has won, but because the contrast is greatest at the moment of transition. The stone is rolled away not by the person inside the tomb, but in response to what has already been accomplished within. And then, sometimes gradually, sometimes with a swiftness that takes the breath away, the outer world begins to reorganize. People behave differently toward you. Circumstances that seemed fixed begin to shift. Opportunities appear that were not visible before. Solutions to old problems present themselves with an ease that the striving mind could never have produced. And none of it is coincidence, none of it is luck. All of it is the law, reflecting the new assumption with the same faithfulness with which it once reflected the old. The resurrection has occurred, the new man has risen, and the world, which is always a faithful mirror, has begun to show you his face. Let me speak now about the practical matter of how to conduct yourself during these 3 days, because the principle only serves you if you know how to apply it. In the morning of each day, there is a window, brief, accessible, enormously powerful, just as you are waking, before the rational mind has fully engaged. In that window, the surface layers of consciousness are quiet and the deeper layers are accessible. Use it. Spend even 3 or 4 minutes before your feet touch the floor, feeling the naturalness of your wish fulfilled. Not affirming it, not reminding yourself of it, feeling it, being in it, letting the body register the reality of the new state. This is not a trick. It is the deliberate seeding of the deepest soil at the moment when it is most receptive. Throughout the day, your task is to monitor your inner conversations. This is the practice most people neglect, and it is the one that determines whether the assumption holds or collapses. What do you say to yourself silently about your circumstances, about your worth, about whether this is really working? Every inner conversation is either watering the new seed or poisoning it. There is no neutral ground. The law registers everything. When you catch yourself speaking inwardly from the old state, and you will, because the old patterns have years of momentum, do not condemn yourself. Simply turn the conversation. Ask, how would I think about this if my desire were already fulfilled? And think that way naturally, without strain, as often as the day allows. In the evening, as you approach sleep, and I have always called this the most powerful portal to the subconscious available to us, enter sleep from the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Let the last conscious movement of your mind be into the state of the answered prayer. What the deeper mind receives at the threshold of sleep, it works upon through the night with a creative intelligence that the waking mind cannot match and should not attempt to compete with. When contradictions arise, and they will, especially on the second day, treat them as weather, not as evidence. You do not revise your destination every time clouds appear over the road. You understand that weather is temporary and the destination is fixed. Apply the same understanding to the appearances of your outer world during these 72 hours. They are the shadow of a past assumption. They tell you what was not what is. The reorganization is occurring beneath them, whether or not they yet reflect it. And when the moment of greatest apparent failures comes, when the old world makes its loudest final argument, hold your assumption with the quiet steadiness of one who has been through the cycle before and knows what it means. That intensity is the darkness before dawn. It is the sign that the old pattern is making its final stand. Meet it not with force, but with the unshakable inner, knowing that what has been planted in consciousness cannot be unplanted. The law does not forget. The cycle will complete. I want to leave you tonight with one image. A farmer plants a seed. He does not stand over the soil demanding evidence of germination. He does not dig it up each morning to check its progress. He does not conclude, because the surface of the earth is unchanged, that nothing is happening below it. He trusts the law. He trusts that the combination of seed, soil, and time will produce exactly what was planted, not because he can see it, but because it understands the nature of the process. You are the farmer. Your consciousness is both the farmer and the soil. The assumption you plant, held with genuine acceptance, felt with honest feeling, maintained with quiet consistency, is the seed. And the 72 hours is the first full cycle of a law as certain, as impersonal, and as dependable as anything in nature. You do not need to force, you do not need to manipulate, you do not need to convince anyone, least of all yourself. You need only to plant the seed correctly, trust the law faithfully, and allow the cycle to complete. 3 days, the death of the old, the darkness of the middle, the resurrection of the new. This is not poetry. This is the precise, reliable, ancient mechanics of how consciousness creates reality. Tonight, choose your assumption. Accept it genuinely as already done. Tomorrow, hold it through the discomfort of the second day. Know that the dissolution is not failure. It is the necessary condition of the new. On the third day, do not be surprised by what rises. The law has never failed anyone who understood it and applied it faithfully. It will not fail you.